Hello, this is Craig Lane and Ken Foster with Health Alchemy YouTube channel, and we're continuing our conversation about bug poop and compost tea and human recycling systems and nature's recycling systems that are already present on the earth and inside of us. So there's this thing that one teacher presented for an essential oils class. I think it was David Stewart. He talked about the chosen ones, and this is an acronym. And he says most of life is made from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. Most of us are made of those elements. Most of life is made of those 5 elements in the periodic table of the elements. That's why my business is called Health Alchemy, because alchemy is health. If you do your alchemy properly, because alchemy is about transformation, transmutation, change, conscious change. So how do I use these elements? Well, this is what a protein is right here. These are the elements in a lot of proteins. This is the element in fat. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That's all fat and carbohydrate is in their purest form. It's just those 3 elements. C6H12O6. That's carbohydrate. So isn't H2O though? So I call carbohydrate a hydrated carbon. I reverse it because it's H2O is water and you add a carbon to it. Right? So these elements can be played with, and they're like Lego building blocks, I call them, of the universe. And so Ken's specialty is seeing what they do in nature in the garden and how permaculture works through it. And then I started studying that about 20 years ago, enough that I could see how important soil science is and how important the bugs are on the planet. And since we were talking about it on the break a second ago, and how important poop is. So
take it and run with it, Ken. So I teach permaculture. I've been blessed with that opportunity. And one of the one-liners, one of the definitions of permaculture is that it's the science of maximizing beneficial relationships. And so when we're thinking about how can we build relationships in the garden, for instance, we're looking at how can we invite our allies, and that might be the soil microbes, it might be birds, it might be insects, all kinds of other creatures. And the more that we start to appreciate the energy, the nutrients that is in poop, the more we can begin to kind of close the loop. Because when we consider poop and our wastes as waste, then we're kind of putting a negative connotation on it that it's no longer useful, that we want to get it gone. Right. And we can kind of change that up, and so that we're inviting allies into the garden, whether it's pollinators or bees or other creatures that have qualities that we want in the garden. And so often when I'm talking about all of our allies and in all their different forms, whether it's wildlife or soil microbes or insects, I'll ask the class, what do all these allies have in common? And so far, in asking the class, people don't come up with the answer. They can't figure out all of our allies, what is common. And then I pull out a book, a little children's book that I have called Everybody Poops. And I read that little story. It's a pretty fun little storybook about how everything poops. And that's the answer. All of our allies poop, and let's celebrate that, use it, make compost tea, bring in animals, whether it's goats or rabbits or chickens or livestock, and really learn how to turn that into a usable product. Chicken manure, you really want to compost it for a long time because it's very hot, very high in nitrogen, and rabbit manure is very low in nitrogen, so it doesn't burn so much. So you can almost use rabbit poop immediately, and chicken poop you want to compost for a long time, like a year. So it varies.
You know, I saw David Bloom in his facility in Watsonville. They had a yellow light over these high poles that were in this greenhouse, and he had rocks around the pole and screen around it, and he had this yellow light, and he turned it on at night, and the yellow light attracted the bugs, and then the frogs made their home in the rocks, and then I guess their poop is incredibly helpful for the soil. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Because if they're eating bugs, then this is what happens after they've digested that, and so that's got to be some good nutrients there.
Because the bugs are probably eating the plants, right?
Right, and so in that process, you're inviting the frogs as an ally.
Yeah.
That are controlling some of the pests that we don't want, and turning that to our advantage.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they eat other insects. They eat insects too. Bad ones. Wow, I just made that connection. Yeah, and the plants around those poles seem to have, more green than the rest, as we can see with nitrogen. I see it with my peat, and I use it as a fertilizer also. And
high in nitrogen.
Yeah, it's one of my.
Mix it with compost tea even, and it's a fine,
amazing
nitrogen fertilizer. And then when we call all of our wastes just that, then we're cutting ourselves off from an incredible source of nutrients that we can use in the garden and in growing food, and and we can use our systems to transform that what would be waste into a useful product. That's one of the principles in permaculture is produce no waste. So this is a way of doing that.
We'll kind of wind down with this last little thought, and one of them was I was telling everybody a story a minute ago about what got me into all this in the 90s. Is Natasha Trenev wrote a studies, and she had a probiotic called Trinity, and my brother was using it, and he was seeing pretty good results, and all Trinity was 3 microbes they had studied for a number of years. But one of the studies on milk really struck me is that they had a certain nutrient profile of milk, and it was on this table, and then they fed the milk to these lactobacillus and these bifidobacteria, helpful bacterias, and then 24 hours later there was another assay of what was in that milk, and it was way more protein, all these immune factors, B vitamins, vitamin K, and I'm scratching my head going, how did that happen? And then it's like, oh, it's bug poop. So I realized this is lactobacillus and bifidobacteria poop, and that's why they're called beneficial bugs. If you've got E. coli and what are they called, fecal coliforms living in your gut, thank you, then you're going to have, what are they pooping? Well, there's your problem right there. They're pooping inflammatory products. And so I tell people, if you're inflamed, start looking downstairs and take responsibility for what I call Foundation 1, which is your chooser. And a lot of people can't make clear choices because they're stewing in their own waste. And we call it auto-intoxication in my world. And so people don't even realize that a lot of brain fog is just they've got too much waste in their system and their blood-brain barrier has been breached. And the waste is actually corrupting their nervous system. And so it would be wise and skillful, as one of my teachers would say, to listen like people like us, because we've been around and we've tried a lot of things. And I think that personally questioning what's being told around us is really important. I spent my whole life questioning authority, questioning everything, and I love that you forged your own way. You forged your own way, and that's how I'm still alive. Is broken neck and multiple concussions, should have died according to the medical people, but I didn't. And you're still here too. And we passed the trials and tribulations that the younger people sometimes don't make it through, and therefore we're able to share what we made it through and give back. This is Craig Lane with Health Alchemy YouTube channel. The big smile on my face, and really loving having Ken Foster in my house. And I'm hoping that you enjoyed this video and you visit Terra Nova Ecological Landscaping and Craig Lane Health Alchemy. Signing off.